Hi everyone, Ashley here on the Penguin Palace Stamps YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be sharing this fun dancing shaker card featuring the Fun Night Out stamp set and the Cyber Wallpaper stencil, which I've used rainbow ink blending on. So there's a lot going on in this card, so without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm starting with my card front, which I've already pre-die cut 2 little holes into, and these will be the holes that allow the shaker mechanism to happen. So you can use any kind of circular die or punch that you may have to cut these holes, but the key thing is just to make sure that they're smaller than whatever you are using for the shaker element behind them. So that would be usually like a penny or a nickel or something. Make sure that these holes are smaller than that. So like I said, I'm using the Cyber Wallpaper stencil for my ink blending. So I'm just taping my card front onto the back of the stencil and lining it up so that it's centered. And I'm using some purple tape to adhere it, and then I can turn the whole thing over and I have the stencil on top of the paper and I can ink blend through it. I chose a series of rainbow shades of Distress Oxide inks, and I'm just using some foam applicators to put them onto the page. And I'm putting them on in rainbow order, starting in the middle with the Candied Apple, which is a nice red tone, and then moving on to the orange, and for each color you'll see that I just blend it on in a circular fashion, kind of radiating out from the center. So the orange there is Carved Pumpkin, and I'm blending it around the red. Then I'll go to my Squeezed Lemonade, which is the yellow, and I'll blend it around the orange, so forth and so on. And then the next colors I'm using are Lucky Clover, Mermaid Lagoon, and Wilted Violet. And you'll see what I end up doing is kind of going back and forth and blending back and forth between the colors. So once I put on my green, I do go back to my yellow. Then I put on the blue and I go back to the green. So this is just a nice way to get a really nice blend between the colors and make it so that you actually get some extra colors in the middle when these colors start blending together. So once I'm done all my blending, I pulled off the stencil and the tape, and you can see the cool rainbow effect that you get here with that focal point really popping out in the middle. Off camera, I went ahead and stamped out some images from the Fun Night Out stamp set, which is this super adorable stamp set of a bunch of critters dancing. There's a DJ in the stamp set, there's what looks like a bartender, and then you get some really cute images of like a table with a bunch of different drinks and some music notes. I've stamped out the 2 dancing critters as well as the dance floor and the disco ball. I knew I wanted to have the 2 critters as part of what I'm calling the dancing shaker card. And what I mean by that is that the 2 critters, when you shake the card, kind of like move a little bit back and forth. They're not going to move a lot. They're not going to move all around on the card, but they'll sort of just move in place and almost look like they're dancing. So you'll see how that comes together later. For now, I'm just using my Copic markers to color in all of the stamped images. I'm using some light browns for the little critters, and then just coloring in their clothes as well. I colored the girl critter's dress in orange tones, and then I'm coloring the boy critter's jacket in blue, kind of to look like denim. I'm using my basic Copic coloring technique for these, which is basically to take a dark and a light, and then blend out the dark with the light. And I generally only use 2 tones when I'm coloring images that are as small as this. But then at the end, I'll go back in with the darker shade one final time to add an even darker shadow effect. I use some grays to color in the disco ball and the dance floor just to kind of keep the attention on the background and the critters. So now it's time to put the card together. As you can see, I have a piece of fun foam, which is going to go behind the card front, and this is going to help with the shaker mechanism. So I'm just sort of lining it up, and then I'm using a pencil to trace out where those 2 die cut holes were on the card front onto the fun foam. And this is where your penny or your nickel will go. So I'm just overlaying the nickel. And then you want to cut a hole in the fun foam that's bigger than the nickel, and this will allow the nickel to have space to move around. So I picked a circle die that was slightly bigger than the nickel, and then off camera went ahead and die cut the fun foam around both circles. And it doesn't matter if they're touching. As you can see here, there's a bit of a space between the circles where they got die cut. That's totally fine. The nickels won't be able to get from one circle to the other. That space is not big enough. So they will still stay in their own little spots. So I just used some double-sided tape all around the area, except for where the circles were die cut, of course. And I'm using that to tape onto the card base. And I'm going to use the same technique on the front here, where I'm going to add some double-sided tape to the front of this fun foam, and then adhere the card front onto that. So what you'll have is a sandwich of your card base, the fun foam, and the card front. with the bigger holes cut into the fun foam and the smaller holes cut into the card front, so you can only see a little bit of the nickels peeking out. This is going to be what makes the dancing shaker card work. So once you adhere the card front onto the foam, you can see that the nickels will move around a little bit in their little cubby holes in the fun foam behind the card front. So now it's time to adhere the little critters onto the nickels, which are the shaking elements. I took a foam square and I'm just cutting around the edges to cut the corners off, to kind of try to make the foam square a little bit more circular, and I figured this would be good to fit into this circle die cut. Once you've got your foam square in mostly a circular shape, you can then adhere it down onto the nickel, pull off that adhesive paper, and then adhere your critter right onto that foam square. So this foam square is what really locks your critter into that spot and makes it so that it can't just fly around in the circle. It's only able to shake around as much as that foam square will shake around in that die cut circle. So basically, as big as you die cut your circles is as big as these little critters will shake around. So you can even play around with the size of circles that you die cut if you'd like, to sort of play around with how far your critters can shake. But for this I kept it small because I just wanted them to look like they were dancing a little bit and not kind of shaking everywhere on the card. So I'm adhering that second foam square onto the nickel and then adhering my second critter onto it, and this will allow both critters to shake and dance around independently. So here's a little demo. You can see the critters do move around a little bit. They don't go crazy, they don't fly around the card, but they kind of just dance in place and shake around a little bit, just like the sentiment of the card says. So I went ahead and adhered the dance floor and the disco ball onto the card just with some liquid glue. And now I'm adding that sentiment strip, which I stamped off camera, but it's "Let's Wiggle and Giggle All Night," which comes in the stamp set as well, which is really cute. So this would be a good sentiment for like a celebration or a birthday or something like that. So here again, you can see how those critters really do wiggle around in this dancing shaker card. And I love how the movement is really interesting, and then the rainbow focal point blended background is also really visually interesting. So I really love how this card turned out, and I hope that you have fun trying this technique at home for yourself too. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more cards like this, please go ahead and visit the Penguin Palace Stamps Instagram page as well as my personal Instagram page, which are both linked in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!